Um, Thank you for joining my talk. So we will talk about fail fast, fail often today, or how about making safety as a prerequisite in your teams. I wanted really to start with some incident which happened on the states of Hawaii last year, in the beginning of last year, as far as I recall, when it actually was a situation when the false missile threat alert was sent to the wall cell phones, radio or television channels in the Hawaii, which leads to actually a lot of panic on the state because people was literally looking for shelter. And just maybe 40 minutes after, there was another alert sent that it was a false alarm actually, because someone in the operations pressed the wrong button. And this is the screen from the Twitter, which actually was shared after incident happened, showing those links which you need to press as a operation person when something is going wrong within the state. And you can see that it might be also UX or UI problem, not only the people's problem. But still, I was actually trying to read as much as I can about what happened next. Or I was actually wondering on how they treated their employee who made this mistake. And apparently, employee refuses to give any explanation or collaborate on the incident, which leads me to the thought that probably something was wrong from the beginning in the setup they had in this organization. So, something about myself. My name is Nataliya. I'm originally from Ukraine, but now live in Stockholm, Sweden, and I work as a tech manager in the company called iZettle. iZettle, in short, it's a fintech company providing full payment solution for small businesses. And our mission is to help actually small businesses to succeed in the world of giants. So back to the Hawaii example. I was thinking maybe something was wrong with the fear or not safe to fail environment in this particular situation. And then it leads me to the thought that maybe we have a lot of fears when we work and when we live in our personal day-to-day life. And then we used to blame people a lot for different kind of stuff. Even on the technical level, we have so-called command on the Git, which is called blame. And I think we need to revisit how it's called right now. Yeah, so blame, unfortunately, is more important than gratitude nowadays in many organizations, which leads to, that fear leads to scapegoating. Usually, you have an organization, you have probably some management structure, and probably those managers are actually in charge of the explanation on what happened, why it happened, and I guess there was some level of management in the states of Hawaii as well. But usually the people in that level tend to point the fingers when something goes wrong, and they are not really constructive. And the most important thing to understand, especially for us who are mostly working in tech, that sometimes managers doesn't even have a right answer on what happened. And again, back to fears we experience. As a techie people, again, we also have some reasons for fears. It's basically, we are sometimes afraid of introducing bugs or mistakes in our software deliverables. Also, we sometimes really, this is happening a lot, based on my experience so far, we are really scary about comments on the pull requests. Then we have fear of fixing someone else's code or so-called legacy problem. And then we have a fear of deploys sometimes, especially on Fridays for some reason. And what is most importantly also to know about fear and actually use when you try to explain this topic to your maybe management or to people who are in charge of decisions making. It's about that fear in most of the cases kills innovation in their organization. Because we are so busy managing impressions that we don't contribute to innovation. So what is opposite of fear? I think it's actually psychological safety. And psychological safety can mean, again, something like safe to admit all mistakes or bugs you can introduce by implementing a change. Or it might be something so that you have to be safe to be imperfect in someone else's eyes on pull requests, for example. Then it might be you might not have all the answers, which is also okay, especially if you work as a manager. And also, you can just not have it all together, which is also happens. So psychological safety, according to the famous professor Amy Edmondson from Harvard, she's saying that psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. And here I wanted actually to refer to the Google and research they did within their HR department back in 2015, as far as I recall. And they basically asked themselves a question: what makes the Google teams productive and effective? And apparently one of the ground thing which brings the productivity and effectiveness is a psychological safety which you can have in the team, which means in essence in the Google interpretation that team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. Now I want to talk a little bit more about actual practices you can employ to enable safety as a prerequisite. There will be two parts, one management and one engineering. So let's start with management practices. One of them is called model curiosity by enabling autonomy. It's about famous interpretation. It's my interpretation, but there is a famous slide somewhere on the internet from Spotify saying how you can cross the river. So many organizations actually have a culture of micromanagement, which is on the bottom, on the left side, which means that you have a high alignment and low alignment and low autonomy, which leads to the actually managers being micromanaging you a lot day to day. Then there is a little bit better situation on the right side of the autonomy when teams do whatever they want, but leaders are helpless. This is one usual situation when you don't have any vision or direction, or you don't know where you're going within your company and with your product. On the top, we have leaders knows, teams follows, which also a little bit better than micromanagement, but still, like leaders saying you exactly what you need to build or provide to be successful. And on the top, finally, we have probably something where we have to strive to. It's leaders define the problems and teams solves the problems, which means that leaders should be avoiding actually providing you with solutions or giving you some advices maybe only. But as a previous speaker, Emily, yesterday said, it should be also, they have to give you a gift of which tools you need or maybe which information you might need to make proper decisions. But then it's up for you and your team to decide on what exactly you need to build to succeed or to resolve the problem for your customers. Next one from the management practice is called continuous learning. In this case, I wanted just to refer to the famous quote from Albert Einstein, which is saying, once you stop learning, you start dying. And one of the practices we used a lot nowadays in Untitled is called popcorn flow. This is like a continuous learning enablement framework. When you start with problems and observations, or call them, it might be some ideas or just observations or existing problems. Then you discuss them within the team or within the different team members from outside of your team. And then you figure out what would be the options you can give it a try or take. And then you actually experiment with those options and continuously review your experiments and trying to evaluate, was that successful experiment or was that failure? And then you repeat. So it's basically an iterative process, like everything in Agile. And next one from the management processes is safe to fail environment. This one is probably one of the most important thing you can ask from your management, and you should ask your management about. it's, first of all, you should acknowledge that you can't fix people. So, but you can fix systems and tools and processes to better support them to make right choices. And of course, you can do that by actually enabling a safety net for your team members, employees, by again supporting them and repeating them day by day that that's okay to fail, but the most importantly is to learn after fail and repeat. And another one called freedom with responsibility. This is about that, yeah, of course, there are many organizations trying to put as much freedom to their employees as they can, but the thing with freedom is that most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. So sometimes freedom is a good option, but again, there are important things to know about freedom. And another one, probably nothing new for you, but still quite important from the management practices perspective, it's root cause analysis. And actually, do you know who is that guy on this photo? Anyone? No? Any versions? Yes, please. Taiichi Ohto? Yes, correct. So he is the inventor of Toyota production system, an actual practice of root cause analysis. He invented and introduced it in Toyota manufacturers in 1975, and in essence, it was about asking 5 whys until you got to the root cause of the issue or incidents happen on your production line. And another practices I'd like to share with you is the practices of post-mortems. Or sometimes many people actually don't like this name for for the debriefing, and they would rather call it debriefing, not post-mortems. It's in essence the same thing. So again, something inspired by Google, there are lightweight post-mortem template, which I actually use a lot as a coach when I'm coaching my teams on how to run those post-mortems sessions. It's usually 3 steps. First, you need to run the root cause analysis, so-called, which we saw on the previous slide. When you ask 5 whys, or maybe more whys, to get the root cause first. And then you work with that root cause by trying to think about how you can prevent those problems to happen again, and how you can actually act faster next time when this incident or problems happens. You generate the ideas within the group, and then you decide on maybe actions to prioritize after this session. Now I'm moving on to engineering practices, which is also, I think, is quite important to consider, especially since we are on DevOps Days. Some of them probably are known for you. So let's start with automate and enable low-risk releases. What does it mean? It means, I actually decided to quote one of my favorite speakers, Jess Humble. He said once that you should be able to get the changes out at any time, safely, quickly, and sustainably, without people burning out or working weekends or being a hero. And the hero moment, I think currently in our organizations we have a lot of hero culturing, which means that, oh, you know, I know this thing better than you. Probably I will fix it for you, but I will not share with you how I did that, so that next time you will struggle even more. Or I will do that on Friday evening, which is even worse, and then you will not know if something will happen during the weekend, how to fix that. Probably something which kind of reflects with your experience as well. And then there are some environment-based release patterns which you can use in order to provide safe-to-fail environment. They're called blue-green deployment and canary releases. So what is blue-green deployments? It's when you have two environments identical in terms of infrastructure, but at some point you want to introduce some change for your product, let's say, or for your maybe bug fixing, which you want to first to roll out on the green environment, and then be able to rotate quickly between blue and green environments in order to roll back if something is going wrong. Usually use the blue-green deployments for that kind of situations. So you basically use the router, which is easily can be switched to blue or green environment. And then there are canary releases. Why are they called canary? Because back to 1928, there was a practice in the miners to bring the canary, small cage with the canary, to the mine, actually to define the level of carbon monoxide in the mines. And usually canary dies if it's a high level of carbon monoxide, sorry. This is why in software development we call it canary releases. So basically you verify with a small canary. This is how it works in practice for Facebook. So usually when they launch something new, they roll out this feature, or again subset of features, to Facebook employees first. And then to the small set of users as a next step. And again, by using a router or a load balancer settings, switch to most users. And at one point of time, you have it on the Facebook internal testing, where you can actually verify does it work or not, and got some feedback immediately. Application-based release patterns. Here we have feature toggles and dark launches, which I guess also was mentioned on the previous talks today. Feature toggles, it's a possibility to easily enable or disable some particular piece of code or feature in your software product. Since you can have really complicated set of features, or a lot of features, you can get this situation. And then there is a dark launch. And dark launch means that, again, by using feature flag or toggling, you can actually roll out your new feature to a small amount of your customers. Let's say you want to roll out to 5% of your certain market first, and then after the evaluation on that small percent of customers, you can actually enable with a feature toggle your product to a bigger group of customers, and in the end, you can roll out to all the markets. And this is an example of dark launch that Facebook actually launched their chat, which is called Messenger nowadays. It was launched back to 2008, and what they did, basically without changing any line of code on the backend, they launched only UI to verify that this feature will be used, or how actually customers will use or behave. By having this pop-up, which was solely implemented on the front end. And then they built, to support this, they actually built a gatekeeper, which is a dark launching feature toggling internal tool they use, as far as I heard even right now, for enabling or disabling certain features on the Facebook. So what they did, they launched this Facebook chat just to a small amount of customers, verified that they actually clicked through it, or checked whom do I have on the friends whom I can actually chat with. And then it was maybe 1 month or so. It took them to learn, and then they actually launched the full set of code needed to support this feature. Get the feedback on each step of delivery process. This one is also very important. Overall value of feedback doesn't matter, is it the feedback on the tech side of things, or is it just the feedback on the organizational side of things, is very important. And again, I would like to refer as an example to Toyota Production Systems and to practice which is called Jidoka, which in essence means that each and every employee on the production line has so-called cord or red button, or it's different depending on the factory, I guess, which he or she can always push when something goes wrong on their production line. If they see that something, let's say, is already coming with not according to the quality standards or broken in the middle, then they should push for this red button, and then immediately all the production line stops, and everyone on this line are focused on fixing the issue, Sometimes it's a waste already, and then it means that production line can start again, but reducing the low quality elements of, or products. And then there is a continuous integration and continuous delivery. Probably not a new topic for you again, but what I like to emphasize here, that the minimum prerequisite for the great safe-to-fail environment and the fast feedback cycle actually is to have continuous integration, because continuous integration in essence means that you should integrate as fast and as frequently as you can with everyone else's code in your code base. But then there is a continuous deployment, which means that for your full cycle of actually integrating to go into production is automated. And continuous delivery in comparison means that everything is automated except of deployment to production, which means that if you have decoupled releases and deployments, it's up for someone to approve maybe this manual step to happen. But still, I just realized that there is a lot of confusions between those terms nowadays in the market, and I thought it's good to be reminded on what's the difference. And learnings, finally. So, psychological safety exists when you're not afraid to be yourself, take risks, make mistakes, raise problems, disagree, and ask questions. I hope you learned something new, and I hope that you're ready to make a safety as a prerequisite for your teams.